us. It's really a pleasure today to be here with you. My name's Ryan. I'm in charge of the training and education part of Pix4D. I will be joined by my colleague Heidi, one of the specialists for technical support. Many of you have probably seen her name before, especially if you have issues with Pix4D Cloud. She is your go-to person in support. So it's a pleasure to have her here with us today to cover the Pix4D Cloud component before we look at Pix4D-Matic. So we have a fantastic attendance this morning, so let's get going. What we'll talk about to start is Pix4D Cloud. So there's a few changes there that we wanted to cover, make sure you guys understand what's happened. There's a little bit of changes in the UI, so we want to make sure that you know exactly where you're at, how to get the most out of Pix4D Cloud for this year. We'll talk about the team act. So that it's not an impediment to your workflows. We'll also talk about Pix4D Matic version 2.0, as well as how to contact the support and documentation. There will be a Q&A at the end, so you're free to drop your questions into the question and answer at the end, and we'll get to them. There might be a couple that Heidi can answer while we're talking about Pix4D Matic in terms of the Pix4D Cloud and organization management, but otherwise we'll have a Q&A session at the end. There's a few things that we're not going to talk about today. So we're not going to talk about pricing. We're not going to talk about any of those commercial things. We're looking at this more from a training and technical perspective to really show you what the changes are on those sides. If you have questions for how to purchase different products, pricing for Pix4D Matic Pro, all this stuff, reach out to our sales team. They will be happy to talk to you and work you through that at a different time. So just a reminder of what the Pix4D ecosystem looks like now. Since there's a little bit of a change, you'll see that Pix4D Survey isn't up here anymore. Because of the unification, it's been brought into Pix4D Matic. And we have our standard data capture with Pix4D Catch, Cloud. We also have Pix4D Engine for those of you in a more enterprise environment. It's something that you can definitely reach out to our people, and they will be happy to talk to you more about Pix4D Engine. If this is the first time you're hearing about it, take a look. There's the API, the SDK. And then we have our desktop licenses, Pix4D Matic, Pix4D Mapper for your traditional photogrammetry, Pix4D Fields for your agriculture, and Pix4D React for your fast orthomosaic. We'll start off with the Pix4D Cloud naming change. So I will pass this off to my colleague Heidi so that she can take a look and walk you guys through the changes that happened on Pix4D Cloud at the beginning of January.
Thank you, Ryan. It's a really pleasure to meet you all. Let me introduce you to, to the new topics. We have, as Ryan mentioned, we have changed recently the name of the licenses. So now the new name of the license are Pix4D Cloud Starter instead of Pix4D Basic, Pix4D Cloud Pro instead of Pix4D Advanced, and Pix4D Cloud Enterprise instead only Enterprise. So for the Starter and for the Pro, there is no bigger changes apart from the name. So still be Starter, the go-to license for only those who would like to process and easily share the datasets. In the step of Pix4D Cloud Pro, is still also a go-to license for those who need advanced features related to generation of, for example, the Gaussian splitting or the import bin models and so on. And Pix4D Cloud Enterprise is the one that have few changes who would like to show you a bit more in detail in our next slide. Here, there is a comparison with the three licenses that I just already mentioned and where you can get the most from it. So I already more or less introduced you. So for all of them are common, for example, that there is no limit of a number of users who can access it. And you can still using the same two process interplays, nadir and oblique. The same outputs generated. In the case of Pix4D Pro, we can see the biggest changes related to the advanced feature and the Gaussian splitting offer. Also for our recent integrations, for example, with the third-party softwares like RGs online, and Trimber, who was a bit introduced just before. And the biggest introduction is related to Featured Cloud Enterprise. What is new in Featured Cloud Enterprise? Well, the featured team access control. This featured maximizes the way that you can control the most the audience of your employees or your clients over your licenses, your resources, your data sets. In this sense, are we going to be talking a bit more in detail in just in a little minute. And but also enterprise give you offers that it maximize the flexibility of your work, doing also to the access to engine APIs, so you can use these APIs for your integrations and your workflows. And it also allows you to maximize the use of the single sign-on, and also allows you to use the featured embedded editor for those who have some platforms to show the results in their own system. Moving forward, we would like to show you how you can maximize the way of your work by how you can get the most of the 3 licenses that we can already mention and explain by our new frame, call it organization management. What is organization management? Well, it's a unit that allows you to centralize all your users, your license that you possess, and the resources that you also may have in Visual Cloud. So you don't have to have now 3 million platforms. You have only a central system where you can combine all of them, and you can have the maximum visibility of the use of those resources for your collaborators or for your employees or for your clients. Also, the access of the licenses and resources are determined by roles. So we have introduced it here, a new system that we can see at the bottom and the left, the new system of roles. So we propose you a new 5 new roles that you can use at your convenience. For example, we propose you to have 1 or 2 owners, always a backup of owner because it's the maximum authority inside this organization unit. You may have some admin people who also allows you to maximize the workflow inside it by inviting people, managing the resources, giving access to licenses, etc. by a manager. You can have a smaller users, like, for example, editor, who may be the person who we can always process, go in the field, capture, and so on. The person who we gonna produce the outputs and so on. So for this, editor is a great. And you may have some stakeholders who you may would like to share your results for discussing the result, the improvement of your work, and or the results for their own businesses by a temporary reader or permanent reader, depends on how long the project it may take. And we have an extra role who we're gonna get in detail right now, because his prominence we're gonna get a little further, that is a member. But member is the person who we gonna have, by having in the organization a member is a person who you're gonna have the most control over. But these members are only exclusive for enterprise licenses. So the P4D Cloud resource, how are we gonna use the word resource? Just to be clear, what is a resource? It's basically data set, sites, and folder. Yeah. So how it looks like in the most abroad for how it looks like for those who have P4D Starter and P4D Cloud Pro inside this unit that we call organization. We have, for one side, licenses, the stock licenses or P4D Cloud, in the sense that you have also the roles and you have the resources. For example, in this case, you may have your desktop licenses who are seat-based. So basically, you can buy a license with multiple seats, and you say, okay, all the owners, managers, and editor at the organization level, we have direct access to this license. It means that there is a seat available. People with this role, it will be able to take a seat on it and use them. And in the same sense, these people can process in their local apps on the local desktops and later use the functionality to share to cloud already producing resources in P4D Cloud. There's also the case that you may have your own license of P4D Cloud, P4D Cloud Starter or Pro in this case, who do not have a seat base. So except readers, all the owners, managers, and editor can create, process, visualize, and everything for the P4D Cloud. In the case of the reader cannot access to the P4D Cloud directly, so it cannot just use it for processing, but it can see all the resources that you have inside your P4D drive. So the reader can enter to every folder, maybe even measure. This measure would not gonna be safe, but they can be made, and they have visibility, entire visibility over the resources. In the next slide, I would like to mention that there is no limit of the number of invitation of people that you can send. So even you can send them as a bulk. Let's say that you start in a project, you have your own, you're gonna create a folder with your department, and you need 50 people in there that they are editors. Well, you can create this folder from the resource. You can send 15 invitation in bulks if you already have at hand all the emails of those persons. There is no need to have a previous P4D account to do this. Actually, when you send an invitation, if the person invited do not have an account, is invited to create one in the process, and later on accept the organization, the role, and navigate through the system, whatever is the license or the resources. The assignation in the role is already sent in the invitation, so the person is invited to already know what is the role in the organization. And there is also a possibility to remove from the organization portal permanently all the person had been invited, also as a bulk, if it's needed. We're not going to go in detail exactly of all of it, but you can find a bit more information in the technical articles that we are presenting you in the round.
Sorry about that. We have a slide
so
slightly out of place.
Yeah. Well, now I mentioned earlier before that there is a special particularity about P4D Cloud Enterprise, and it's the functionality of team access control. And now let's go a bit in detail what exactly it is. What is a team access control? It's a functionality who allows you to really allocate at the detail level which people use licenses and which one are not, and who people access resources and which one not. So it's the maximum control of the audience over your organization with respect to licenses and resources. Bit more in detail. In the left, once again, we have the licenses. So you can decide who have access or not over your desktop or app licenses. It means that you from the organization portal do have a new tab for those who have enterprise. We're gonna use it called license management. From here is a list of all the licenses the organization have already bought. And from this, you can decide. For example, owner, managers, and editors still have direct access from the role to all these licenses if there is a seat available. The tricky came now for the readers and members who never had direct access. In this case, you may decide to say, okay, for this particular license, for example, P4D Cache, I would like this reader or this member to have access. So you can go enable the access for these people, and you can even revoke the access whenever you think is fit. Who can do this? Well, the managers and the owner. That's why the discontinued lines say that it's not full access, but this is access if it's granted by a manager and the owner. So in the other side, now we have the resources. So you may think, oh, but what is the cloud license? Well, cloud license in this case is already implicit. So you get enterprise and you get already by default a cloud license, an advanced one, by the way, who not only is only an advanced one, but also, as I say, I tell you, API access and sign-on access and so on. So become your tool also. So also your right more than anything. So in this sense, in the P3D Cloud resources, we're gonna have, once again, the owner and the manager to have full access over it, so they can directly create whatever is directly from the interface of cloud, whatever is API, create project datasets, create sites, and so on. And now you can have a reader and a member directly aside to say they do not see everything in the drive. The reader, in this case, it does, but the member, in this case, do not. So if you have a member, this person do not see everything that is in the drive. It's only gonna be able to see only to that resource that has been invited to. It can be invited to multiple resources, not necessarily have to be only one. You can have a member who is invited to a specific site, to a specific folder, and to a specific, so in different places in the drive. You can have a member who have access, for example, to an entire folder, or have a member who's invited to a specific site. So you can see all the data set in that site, but no more of it. So your member is the role who maximize the control of our audience. So the people who have these licenses is our advice to use this role the most, because like this, you have also more security and you have more privacy, and you can keep all the things more under control. So in the next slide, we can see a bit of a review of what I just said now. So basically, team access control only being granted through P3D Cloud Enterprise. So you want to have this functionality, you need enterprise licenses. This, in the case of the access control for the licenses, the access is just granted in one click. For example, here we have a P3D Cache license. Who you can see, this is the list of all the people invited in this organization. Already, the ones are, for example, the one is owner already have directly access. You can see the bottom of the list. But for those members, do not inherit a direct access, neither for the readers. So if you want to have, for example, Elena to have access P3D Cache, it can be granted. So you just click in the button to enable this access. That person receives an email saying, hey, Elena, you have been invited to this organization, and you have been also granted access to the P3D Cache licenses. And it also, we give an idea, for example, how that person can be on board. So in the email also we say, just to get started, you can download the app here, and you can get your starter guide here, and so on. So this access can be revoked all the time for the readers and members. So from the organization portal, exactly this page. In the case of you may ask what happened with the people from the organization, but the access from the organization, it has to be revoked from the invitation section. So you don't want a manager to have access to anything else, but you can permanently remove from the organization and revoke all the access and all the controls. Yep. Here, this is an example of invitation to a folder in P3D Cloud. For example, you can see here we have already the list of people who have been invited, already the role assigned. For example, what is interesting here is the color, right? So, for example, the people who is in green, like green, it means that this role is inherited from the organization. Some people have been, for example, it's the owner organization or the manager of the organization, and in blue, what we can see is the people have been only invited to this resource. In this case, for example, the user A is not a member of, is not a person in the organization, it's only a member inside this folder. So this person do not see licenses, do not see any information in the organization. The only thing he can see is everything that is inside this folder. In this case, it's a manager. What it means is a member manager who can be able to, only inside this folder, make changes. It means process a new data set or make modifications and annotations, already created folders, create new folders, or create new data sets, or create new so it can do inside this folder all the functions that P3D Cloud allowed to a member, to a manager in this sense. So the invitation can be sent in bulk, and it can be also removed in bulk. If, for example, you invite a person, and this person do not react quickly to the invitation, you can see in the pending section who are the people who are still waiting for for this for invitation, for example, who's waiting to be approved the invitation. I want to mention at last here that to remove, if you remove, for example, user A from this folder, it only remove it from the results. If you want this person to be completely removed from the organization itself, you have to go in the top right where it says organization portal and go from the user management tab and delete exactly from there. Also, once again, only the managers and the owners are the ones who can do this. So this is for now I have to present about the Pix4D cloud. So I pass the voice to Ryan.
All right, thank you, Heidi. It's always good to get a refresher on the organization management, especially with the team access control list. So we're going to look now at the Pix4D version 2.0. So as you know, it came out beginning of January 5th, it launched. We will look at the different, we'll look at what this means for your workflows, what this means for the licenses, and we will start with a little video. So Pix4D 2.0 is the unification of, Pix4D version 2.0, because version 2.1 will be coming soon too, is the unification of Pix4D and Pix4D survey. So many of you have been asking for this for a while, and here you go. It's here. You can now take your data set from images to contour lines all in the same software. You don't have to switch between Pix4D Pix4D survey for different deliverables. What you do in the point cloud now stays in the same software. So what you can see on the screen now is the entire workflow from beginning to end, bringing the images in all the way through to the contour lines. So to be able to do this, you need the Pix4D Pro license. That way you have access to everything. We'll look at the different license structures because there's been a little bit of a change there too with having basically the two softwares in the same. What was two softwares brought into the same software, there's a little bit of a change for licenses. So there's been a few questions from clients at the beginning of this year. What do these licenses mean? What do I have access to? So we'll look at addressing that today. But to get started, you see here everything that you can do. So what we're generating now are still the photogrammetry part. So for those of you that were working with the Pix4D before, that's a familiar workflow. Now we get to the changes. So these are the Pix4D survey tools that were brought into Pix4D now, being able to classify the terrain, generate your grid of points, your TIN. You can see now there's a DTM. This is something that many people were asking for. So some of you work with the TIN model, some of you work with the DTM, the digital terrain model. Now you can generate both directly in Pix4D, and you can see the difference between the DSM and the DTM. And then with your contour lines, you can choose which one you want to use to generate your contour lines. So the DTM is back. For those of you that came from Pix4D Mapper, you've been asking for this for a while. Here you go. 2026 is your year. The new surveying menu, as I said, has a number of functions that if you're familiar with Pix4D survey, these will be entirely familiar to you. For those of you that have only worked with Pix4D this will be a little bit of a change. You can do different things. So the terrain classification is a simple terrain versus non-terrain filter, basically just to isolate the terrain points. A grid of points is just a simplification of that point cloud, removing all of the non-terrain points. TIN is a 3D visualization, 3D reconstruction of the changes in terrain based on the grid of points. The DTM, as I said, is this new one that came in. It doesn't use the grid of points, so it goes a little bit outside of the workflow that you had in Pix4D survey. It goes back to the point cloud and it generates your digital terrain model based on that filtered point cloud. So you should run that terrain classification before, separate your terrain and non-terrain. And then based on those classified points, you can generate your digital terrain model. So of course, with Pix4D you can also go back and edit the point cloud, reclassify the points, all of these things to make sure you have the best quality DTM possible. Then there's the contour lines, the road object detection. So we'll look a little bit more in detail about some of these. So here on the left, you can see the terrain classification. Green is terrain. This blue magenta is the non-terrain. So you can see how easy it is just with one click and a couple of settings to filter between your terrain and non-terrain. The grid of points takes that information, simplifies it. You can see it on the right. It's a little bit more difficult to see without zooming in a lot because they're just little marks that show the changes in elevation. We take those changes in elevation and we get our tin model. So this is what you see on the left. And just to show you the comparison between the tin model and the DTM, the big one is that you can see that there's the little icon showing you that one is 3D, whereas the other is 2D as well. So depending on your workflow, you have the two options now, which is a very nice addition, in my opinion, to be able to do both in the same software. Use the one that works best for you, that gets you the information that you need for your workflow. As I said, we can get the contour lines from both, so you can see based off of the simplification that you have on the left or from the point cloud on the right. Use the one that works best for you. With this unification as well, there's a couple of more advanced vectorization. These will be available with Pix4D, some with the standard, some are only available. And then with the Pix4D Pro, well, you don't have to worry about that. You have access to everything without questioning whether you have it or not. So one of the things that came in a little bit towards the end of last year, but just to make sure that it's known by everybody, is we now have the 3-point circles. So you can define your circles based off of 3 points instead of just having the center and then the radius. Arcs is a new feature, which is really nice for those, especially working in public safety, that have to draw the arcs all the time. You don't need to do 50 different clicks now. In 3, vectorize your arc, and you have a much smoother, much cleaner polyline that comes. Catenaries is a little bit more of a special case. This is for hanging wires or anything that kind of stretches from point A to point B. And you can see an example on the right, stretching between the building. The automated vectorizations that those of you working with Pix4D Survey have gotten used to have now been brought into Pix4D as well. So we have the assisted road marking, the wall detection, roof detection, stockpile detection, even the road object detection. It's all in there. So this is really a complete merger from Pix4D Survey brought into Pix4D so that it's all under one software. There's also the orthomosaic editor. So this is one that came out towards the end of the year that is a big change. So for those of you that were used to working with Pix4D Mapper, if you needed to edit your orthomosaic, you could quickly do it in a few clicks. Now in Pix4D you can do the same. So you can basically apply a patch to your orthomosaic or multiple patches, however many you need to get the job done. Select your images, choose which projection you want, whether you have the orthographic or the planar, and then you can apply this directly to your orthomosaic. So when the orthomosaic gets exported, it's not a bunch of patches, it's one file, and it's all good. You can see the change that this happens, that this brings to your orthomosaic here. So if you need to remove vehicles, if you need to remove anything, you can quickly do this now in Pix4D. So it's not quite related to the merger, but I really wanted to make sure you guys knew that this was there, because it's something that I was hearing a lot that nobody realized that it was there, but it makes a big difference in your workflows. One other thing to look at is you can now process on Pix4D Cloud directly from Pix4D. So being able to share from Pix4D has been around for a while. You upload your deliverables that you generated in Pix4D or Pix4D Survey, and you can access them on Pix4D Cloud. Well, now you can do the preliminary work in Pix4D, upload those for processing on Pix4D Cloud. So this is a way, for example, if you're using non-traditional ground control points, mark them in Pix4D, and then you can process on Pix4D Cloud. The thing to keep in mind here is when you are just sharing the deliverables, you're not consuming credits, where when you're processing on Pix4D Cloud, you are. So for those of you used to working with Pix4D Cloud, you're aware of what these credits are. For those of you coming straight from Pix4D that have just been sharing, take a look at the credits, because it is a little bit different from just sharing to processing. One other major thing, this has been around actually for a little while, but I wanted to bring it up again, is you can actually open your Pix4D Mapper projects in Pix4D now. And this is a big advancement because personally for myself, I worked in the field for years, the worst thing that we had was when the software changed and we couldn't access our last 10 years of data. And it broke all of our workflows. It did all of these things. So Pix40matic is backwards compatible with Pix40 Mapper projects. You just basically drag and drop the Pix40 Mapper file onto Pix40matic, link the images, and you have your Pix40 Mapper project in Pix40matic. And then, of course, you can use the tools in Pix40matic to move forward. So there's no more lost data transitioning from Pix40 Mapper to Pix40matic. So those are the big changes for Pix40matic that happened in early January, bringing everything into one software. What came with that is a little bit of a change in how the licenses are labeled. So we saw with Pix40 Cloud that there's a little bit of a change in the names. In Pix40matic, it's a little bit bigger of a change. So we now have 3 license types for Pix40matic, whereas before we had 1. Analyst is essentially what was Pix40 Survey in Pix40matic. So you have access to the surveying workflow, advanced vectorization. So this is where you have your automated tools, your assisted road marking, for example. You have your advanced arcs and catenaries, and you have your full surveying workflow with the DTM. With the analyst license, you can't process the images. It's just the Pix40 survey, the analysis component. So if you need to process, you need either the standard or the pro. So this is one area where we need to make sure that you guys are aware of how it is. If you had a Pix40 survey license, you will now have a Pix40matic analyst license. And I'll show you towards the end how to change between the different licenses. Those of you that had a Pix40matic license before January 5th have been moved to the Pix40matic standard. So you'll see that there's this little tag that's added to your license in the license manager. And this is your photogrammetry processing license. So this is where you can generate your 2D, 3D reconstructions. This is where you can add your basic vectorization. So you won't have access to the automated tools and some of the more advanced vectorization options, but you can do your sections and your ortho planes. You can do all these things. And how you can tell whether you have access or not is you'll see a little lock next to the menus that you don't have access to. So if you see this little lock, that means that you're not able to access that menu. You can open it, but you're not going to be able to see it. And we'll see that towards the end as well. So this is where the standard and the analyst really are separate. So this is the historical Pix40 survey is your analyst, Pix40matic is your standard. Pix40 Pro, you have everything. This is one license, one workflow, all of your photogrammetry, surveying, and then all of your basic and advanced tools. And moving forward, there will be features that will be added to each license structure that might not be available in both of them, in some of the others. With the Pix40matic Pro, you don't have to worry about that. You have access to everything that gets added to Pix40matic. And there should be some interesting things coming in 2026. We're not going to talk about the roadmap today, but we're excited about a couple of changes that are hopefully coming in the very near future in 2026. So the Pix40matic Pro, if you need access to everything, this is going to be your safest bet because you don't have to worry about flipping licenses or anything like this. As I said, I will show you quickly how to change between the licenses. It's very simple. You click on the organizations and licenses under the account, and you can see the 3 different ones there. And then you can just flip back and forth. And as I said before, this is what you'll see if you don't have access to one of the menus. You'll see it's a little bit more extreme when you have the analyst, is you don't have access to any of the processing. But it's easy to switch back and forth between the different licenses depending on what you have. But by far the easiest is just to have the Pro, and then you don't have to worry about switching between the two or having one that's blocked on a computer and the other one that you need to get your job done. If you're interested in upgrading to Pix40matic Pro, just reach out to our sales team. We're not going to talk about that here. I just wanted to let you know. And then there's a link that will be sent in part of the webinar. Reach out to the sales team, see what they can do for you about upgrading your licenses, and they will walk you through the process. I will pass things back to Heidi to finish up for us to discuss Pix40 support and documentation and how to get the most out of the how to get help the fastest and the most concretely for when you have issues. So Heidi, take it away.
Thank you, Ryan, once again. So I would like to introduce you a bit more in detail how you can use all our tools related to support. This is not exclusive, so all type of licenses can use it, all type of users can access it. So by accessing to our official website, pitchfordy.com/support, you will land in this page where you will be able to see few things. So let's say that you want to review our knowledge base. So our knowledge base, they have a very specific structure that is kind of more or less the standard for all the products. In this case, you will gonna, for example, when you click in the documentation, you will gonna open a new page. In that page, you will gonna able to see all the Pitch4D products. And for example, choosing Pitch4D Cloud, you will gonna have few sections where you will see at the very start an introduction section where allows you to navigate to create your first project. We're telling you what are the inputs we support, the outputs we can produce, how to use a template, how to navigate through the project wizard when you create your first project, how to create your first site, and so on. So you have another sections that also are standard for all of the other products. That is how to sections, where we explain you in detail how to do, for example, very specific actions. Let's say I want to, for example, I want to import an annotation at the DXF file or so on for your work. So you're gonna have plenty of information on how to do that. All the other things, and how can I generate, for example, a processing area or stuff similar in that sense. We have also a specific section for the advanced feature. In this case, for Pitch4D Cloud Pro, we have specific section who introduce you how to use the sites, how to create how to use or navigate to the timeline, how to import your bin files, or even how to do other advanced features in the set, how you work with your Gaussian splitting models, and how all the ways that you can create it, from where you can import it, and so on. And we have also other standard sections that are related to, for example, brief introduction of, for example, common issues that you may encounter while doing a few things with our products. So we have a small troubleshooting sections. In some particular cases, Pitch4D Cache, you have a section dedicated specifically to the hardware. You can find all the information there, where you do with RTK, with your antennas, and antenna DPS, etc. And you also, for example, have other sections related to, in this, for example, in the case of Pitch4D Cloud, once again, you have an introduction to the 3D party software. So in the sense that how to use Trimble, how to connect to Trimble, how to connect to RGS Online, for example. So, well, let's say that you want to talk to us. Why not? So now we have this button is called Get Support. So in Get Support, you be first navigate through our chatbot in the first place, who we first gonna ask you, how can I help you? So basically, we let you choose your product, and you'll be able to prompt your question in there, and you'll be able to see the primary information we have about your question. So if you want to get specific support, let's say you want to talk to a specialist like me or to other my colleagues. So in the second prompt of the chatbot that we call Pixie, we're gonna ask you if you want to talk to a human. So for clicking that option, it will quickly through you to the contact form. Already, some of you already familiar with it. So we ask you the basic information. So for example, the title, what is the brief description of your issue? Is this attached to a specific data set or specific site? What is the URL? This is in case of the desktop license, is a specific I don't know, like information message that you can send us log files, the same for cache and so on. So the idea of what are we using Pix is first, where we get this question quite often. So Pixie do not pretend to be replacement of a human. We don't want you to. The idea of Pixie is always to help with primary questions that for people, a lot of clients that are starting creating the first project who may have some questions that can be simply answered for a chatbot, like how can I create my first project, or how can I import GCPs, or how can I use the auto GCP, or how can I do stuff like that. So PC is trained to always look in our support documentation. We update it very often, very often to our latest updates. So our idea is that PC is always a help to you, in the sense that also sometimes depends on the demand. We take a bit more time to reply to your questions. So we want you to not only find your answers, but also to quickly find your answers. So, but of course, Pixie is not prepared for everything, especially very complex questions. And in this sense, we also don't want to make it super complicated for you. We also want to talk to you. It's in our best interest to talk to you and to help you as faster and as quicker as we can. So that's why the contact support is always the second option once Pixie already asks you the first question. So apart from this, we also have other channels. You can also contact, for example, training, and you can also contact sales. They are not very far away from our contact form page. Also, in the way we organize our system is that, for example, in our support pages, we keep all the information condensed. For example, now we have changed in names already. The names are already changed, so you can already reflect all the changes we are doing quickly for all the information. And yeah, we are here to support you and talk to you in the best of our abilities, and always a pleasure to assist you and to talk to you and to help you in your daily work.
All right, thank you, Heidi. I will just add one thing, that, for example, from Pix40 Matic, you can also directly access Pixie. If you go help, ask Pixie, it'll bring up a dialog in your web browser, and then you can ask about whichever software questions you might have. So it's a quick little workaround as well. If you find that you're stuck on something, this way Pixie does the research in the knowledge base for you, and then you can move on from there. And if Pixie's not able to answer, as Heidi said, we do have support agents all around the world that will be happy to help you. But Pixie will give you the answer within a couple of minutes, which is where it becomes very, very helpful when you're really stuck on something quick and you don't know what to do. It will do the research for you. And it's only going to look through our knowledge base. It's not going to bring in something from who knows where. It's really limited to our knowledge base. So you're really just looking at an AI chatbot of our knowledge base. It's not, it doesn't go beyond that. So now there's a few questions that are there. So if you have any questions, please drop them into the Q&A and we will answer as best we can. We probably won't get to all the questions today, so we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. The first one that I see is, does the orthomosaic editor balance the color of the replaced patch to match the orthomosaic? Difficult answer is yes and no. It's kind of on you to select the images that reflect the coloration that you're looking for. So the example that I showed, since I am part of the training team, I have a data set that works very well for this. I knew exactly which image to click to get the exact same coloration. It's up to you to select the images. So it will only modify the things within the patch. It will not change, it will not blend that coloration with the surrounding territory. It's really constrained by the patch that you put in. So you do have to be careful when you're selecting different images that you are blending with the other areas, because if you choose one that's substantially darker, that patch will show up darker. And then depending on the size of your orthomosaic, it might be visible, it might not. But the best is to try to find the images that match the coloration you want. And depending on what you're working with, whether you're working with the orthographic editor, which kind of keeps the dimensions, or the planar, which just changes the image that's there, it will change as well a little bit the precision of your measurements in that area, depending on which one you're using. So you'll have to do that blending yourself.
I can see other questions. Is Ryan? And so there Lucas is asking us, there is a way to switch resources a user have access aside from the API. Yes. The thing is that in this sense, you can, for example, you can go into P4D Cloud Drive and you can see in the invitation section of each resource, who is the people who have access to it. So you can quickly navigate from each resource, so for a folder, for a site, and see in the invite section of it, who is already have access. So you can see this outside of the API. So you can see it in the visual part. There is a second question that we received from Sebastian. Thank you to you too for this question. So Sebastian, your question is saying, have several parts, so we go one from each other. The first part of the question is say, will the team access control and organization management available with API? Yes, this is the, so if you have a P4D Cloud Enterprise, you have team access control, you have all the features of the organization management, and you have API access, and you have a sign-on access, and you have embedded editor access. So yes. So what about the license management for the API? Well, I just say it's a P4D Cloud Enterprise will give you access to it. For example, releasing the seeds for P4D cache with the API. Well, this is an interesting question. So basically from the P4D cache, there is a button so where you can release the seed. This button is connected to an API. So I think currently this API that we execute in the background of the app is not public yet, but I can take this feedback from you, and if you are interested in to use it publicly, I can talk to the product team and see if we can do something about it. But for now, to release a seed from P4D cache, you have two specific ways. You can use this button that you have inside the app and release the seed, or you can wait 12 hours of inactivity, and after 12 hours inactivity, the P4D cache force the logout of the account that had not been used. It's also a way to free the seed. There are other questions. This is a bit a mix between Matic and Cloud. So I will start it. Is Ryan going to say something? Can help me on this one? So the question is say that is also from Lucas. Thank you, Lucas, for your questions. Always very interesting, and we're very pleased to reply to you. So the question is say, will the GCP detection and P4D Cloud processing / sharing be incorporated into the workflow interface of P4D Matic at some point? The question is, it's already there. So we are pleased to say that it can be used. Let's say that you create your data set in P4D Matic. You can merge your GCPs, and you can use afterwards the option that is called processing in cloud. And we generate an OPS file who upload it, all your processing options along with the mark of the GCPs for processing. So once the dataset is processed in cloud, you already have your GCPs also in there. So it's used during processing. Yeah. So it's ready to use.
I mean, I can't speak for the UI per se because I'm not in charge of that part, but I think it will always kind of stay as a separate workflow than the main processing options menu, just simply in terms of ease of use, because it is an alternative way of processing the data. So the next question is a standard one that I get a lot, whether Pix4D Mapper will disappear and we have to upgrade. Pix4D Mapper is still here. We're not cutting it, so don't worry about that. The idea for Pix4D Matic Pro is to have all the tools that you need for Pix4D Mapper under one software as well. So if you're a longtime Pix4D Mapper user, I highly recommend that you take a look at Pix4D Matic Pro and see if there's any tools that are missing. And if there are, let us know as well that there's something that's missing that you really badly need from Pix4D Mapper. But at the moment, no, the Pix40 mapper is definitely not going to disappear as an independent product just because we brought out Pix40 Matic Pro. There's another one related to the license structure. So if with OTC licenses for Matic and Survey. So this is a question that we're hearing a lot right now, and this is normal. This is part of the reason why we wanted to have this webinar in the first place. If you had a Pix40 Matic license before January 5th, you will have a Pix40 Matic standard license now. If you had a Pix40 Survey license before January 5th, you will have a Pix40 Matic Analyst license. You are still able to access both of them. As I showed in my little video, you can access the licenses quickly through the organizations and licenses menu at the top and change between the two. Depending on which license you are connected to, you will have functionalities that will be blocked. So between the two, you have essentially most of the functionalities of Pix40 Matic Pro, but you have to keep flipping between the licenses. If you want to consolidate your licenses, your Pix40 Matic and your Pix40 Survey licenses that you purchased before, talk to our sales team. They'll walk you through the process. It's quite painless, let's put it that way. Between support and sales, they will get you from individual licenses to having a Pix40 Matic Pro. And that way you don't have to worry about flipping back and forth. But the licenses that you bought in the past, especially the OTC licenses, they're still there. It's just that the name has changed slightly, and now you need to switch back and forth between the two. So there's also a question of processing via Pix40 Cloud datasets coming from Pix40 Matic, whether all the parameters are considered from Pix40 Matic. So there's a couple of things here. So if you mark your ground control points in Pix40 Matic before uploading for processing to Pix40 Cloud, all of that will be brought into the project. If you add your region of interest, your manual tie points, ground control points, whatever it might be, all of that can be brought in and processed on Pix40 Cloud. One other area that we heard was a little bit of a pain point was that you would edit the point cloud in Pix40 Matic, you would upload and share it to Pix40 Cloud, and suddenly those points would be back. We fixed that, and now those points will be removed when you upload an edited point cloud from Pix40 Matic to Pix40 Cloud. Heidi, do you have anything to add that I might have missed on that one?
Yeah, you got the most of it.
All right.
Yeah, perfect. I think actually I can say something else a bit more, I can say, resume. So the question, the specific answer is 90% yes. So, and the reason why is, for example, what I'm gonna say is why there is a pipeline in Pix40 Matic that is a trusted orientation and trusted location and orientation. So if you use this pipeline and you want to process with this pipeline from Pix40 Matic to cloud, right now it's not possible. So we are not considering this. So it's working for templates, native and oblique. But for example, other important changes, like let's say that you have a PPK workflow. So you have your images and you import a file with your RTK, and you combine them in Matic, and you upload a template with this format to Pix40 Cloud, we consider the geotags with the PPK. So this is a way that you can navigate now in a PPK workflow. For example, we do not support in Pix40 Cloud and PPK workflow directly, but if you came from Matic in this way, it works perfectly. And for example, I say that you want to play a bit also with the metadata of your images, and you want to do important changes, like for example, changing the angle of the camera, the stuff like that. If you make also changes like that, it will be reflected in Pix40 Cloud later on. So we also look at it. So the big the thing that we do not support right now, but I say right now because we plan to do in the future, is to support the trusted geolocation orientation template. This give a bit more concise explanation of what I expect. So there are two more questions, Ryan. Do you think we can go quickly to it?
Sure. So there's a question regarding Pix40matic offering more tools for processing and editing indoor-outdoor LiDAR scans in the future. So in terms of the processing part, that's a little bit more difficult because each scanner has their own proprietary formats. So that part becomes a little bit more difficult for agnostic software such as us. So in the near future, I would say that it's going to be very difficult to process, for example, a Leica scanner or anything like this because of simply the format. And they're not going to give us the code to process it. That way you stay in their software to process. In terms of editing, though, we can bring in the point cloud. So you can generate a point cloud in whichever software you want. You can bring it into Pix40matic. You can merge it with existing point clouds, photogrammetry point clouds, or you can work with that point cloud on its own. And there you can edit the point cloud. You can do whatever else you need to do to get your workflow done. But in terms of the processing, that one's a little bit more tricky. So I wouldn't expect that in the near future, but in terms of editing, we're already there. You can do this already. I have a nice data set that I bring in every once in a while, that I have a tunnel that was only able to be captured with a LiDAR scanner simply because of the lighting and everything else. And there it's easy to edit the point cloud, classify it, and do all of those standard things that I would do in photogrammetry as well. I think we have one last question to finish up the day. Gaussian splatting, is it coming to desktop? Well, it's in cloud. It's been in cloud for the last little while. It started with Pix40 Catch, being able to upload with your depth maps to get the nice Gaussian splatting. We were able to expand it to drones, and we were able to bring that into Pix40 Cloud as well. So you can process both Pix40 Catch and drone data sets in Pix40 Cloud with Gaussian splatting. So the next logical step is to bring it into the desktop as well. So I have no eyes on the roadmap per se of when this might be happening, but it's definitely the next logical step after the cloud is to bring it into desktop. And personally, I'm quite excited for that as well. That if we can do that, this will be spectacular. The results with Pix40 Cloud have been unprecedented as far as I can tell, with the quality of the point cloud and the mesh and everything else. Like, it improves everything. It's really been a spectacular technique to bring into Pix40 Cloud. So I'm really excited for it to come to desktop as well. But I don't know when. But to me, it's the next logical step. All right, I want to thank everybody for their participation today. I hope that you learned a lot. If you have more questions, please feel free to contact us. There's the QR code. If not, you know exactly where to find us, pix4d.com/contact. If you have questions for training, you can reach us there. If you have questions for sales, you can reach out through that form as well. First, for contacting support, Heidi walked you through on how to do that. Quick little chat with Pixie, and then there's that little link about getting human support at the end to make sure that you're all set and get the answer that you need in a timely manner. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully you learned a few things. The recording will be sent out in next week, as well as a few helpful links for you to have access to some of the links that were in the presentation. As well, there is a 20% discount code for the upcoming workshops in February. Sorry, there will be hosting the second week of February in the European time zones. So stay tuned for your code there, and we look forward to seeing you there. And this will be really a technical training, how to use the software, how to go into detail on the processing options, the surveying menu, and all of that. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. It's a really pleasure.